What's going on, PSBL? Omega Tech here, coach of the Tampa Bay Infernapes, bringing you guys my draft analysis for, I'm not sure what season of PSBL this is, but haven't been in a draft league in a while, almost a year, due to work and such, but now I do have the time to compete in the league, and in this Ubers league, we did a monotype tourney to decide the order of whoever won that tournament. That was me, and so I decided to go first. The reason I decided to go first is because, well, not only do I either like going first or last in draft, but Ubers, there's a lot of good Ubers Pokemon out in the tier list, from 25 points to 18 points. So my first pick here was Arceus Ghost. The reason I chose Arceus Ghost was because not only is it like completely versatile, but the Ghost version of Arceus rarely has any switch-ins and Ubers. Like, I did play a lot of Ubers back in the day in the ladder, and Ghost is a really good offensive typing. Not a lot of things can switch into it except normal, but out of all the other Arceus forms, it's like the most consistent one. It's a good rapid spinner. Even if it is weak to Dark and Ghost itself, it can't get its item knocked off and such. And 120 stats around the board is really good. Plus, like, look at its coverage. It gets pretty much everything except like what Mew gets. It doesn't get every TM, but it gets Recover, it gets Rocks, it gets Defog, and any offensive set or setups that you can think of. That's why I decided to draft Arceus. I believe only one other coach decided to draft an Arceus form, and I think that's a mistake because Arceus is just so versatile in draft format in general. But that was my first pick. Then I had to wait a long time to decide what my next two picks were, and I decided to go with Terrakion and Protean Greninja. So talking about Terrakion, like I said, I did Ubers ladders back in the day, and there's a lot of Ubers that are weak to rocks. Ho-Oh, Lugia, you have to threaten them. Fighting, especially with Arceus normal, even though Arceus normal isn't legal in this league, but you need powerful mons to deal with those Ubers, and so I decided to draft Terrakion, especially since I have Arceus Ghost on my team. He is weak to Dark and Ghost, and with the Justified boost, Terrakion can switch in on Dark Mons and punish them. Especially with Greninja too. Not only, well, he's not really a good switch into those, but he is a good mon to deter away opposing Ghosts and opposing Psychics like Mega Alakazam and Gengar and such, if they're Scarfed. And the reason I chose Protean over Ashgren is because really Ashgren only gets online when you transform it, even though like during the mid game maybe it'll transform, or but Protean Greninja is just more consistent, especially since the Protean abilities is so good against Ubers, because there's a lot of various Ubers that are weak to stuff, but with Greninja you have stab on everything. And even though Ashgren is really good when it transforms, it's just not consistent for me. And especially since just Greninja in general carries spikes, toxic spikes, and pivot options. I really like Greninja on my team to deter away those Ghosts, and Terrakion to switch into potential Darkmons and have good stab rock moves and fighting moves for Ubers. And so next up, had to wait a long time again. I decided to draft my Mega, which was Latios. Latios was at 1 point above me, and it was another Ubers Mon, so I could not draft Latios, otherwise I would have. But I did settle for Latios. Latios is still really good. It's my Dragon type. It's extremely bulky, and 160 attack is nothing to mess with. Really good for, I mean, it does share a weakness with Arceus Ghost, but I can shore up that weakness a little later. And even if it does share a weakness, it's not knockoff weak. Can't get knocked off. Ghost Arceus can't get knocked off either. And I think I really needed a Levitating Mon and a good Dragon. And I didn't really know what else my Mega was going to be, and so I just decided to pick Latios. And it's really versatile. It gets screens, it gets Dragon Dance, it gets various special moves, various physical moves. And it's my first defogger. If you know me, I don't like clicking defog that much because I like spike stacking my opponent more. And if you are clicking defog, you're essentially losing the game because your opponent is going for a free move of some kind. But I had to drop a minimum of 2 or 3 defoggers on my teams just so I don't get spike stacked or set up screened on, stuff like that. But Latios is a good defogger, a good dragon, and a good mega. And then next I drafted Thundurus. The reason I drafted Thundurus was I needed a flying and electric, but not necessarily that type combination, but I saw some of the coaches that might give me trouble in the future are drafting powerful electric, so the Volt Absorb was really good for that. And I don't really want to get Volt switched on a lot, and this will deter that, especially since I'm drafting more Earthquake weak Mons. It's good to have another flying Mon. And Thundurus is really threatening itself. It gets Nasty Plot, it gets Agility, it gets Volt Switch and U-Turn. It's 145 special attack is really powerful. And yeah, that's it. And so usually it doesn't matter that I have a powerful electric on my team, but just looking at everybody's team, I decided just to draft Thundurus anyways. And I don't think I'm going to regret it because this thing is really powerful. Especially since my speed tiers are pretty good right now, as you can see. Let's see, go to my page real quick. My speed tiers are really good, 122, 120, 115 down here, 108, 100. It's really spread out, and I really like that. So Thundurus adds to that. Next, I decided to draft Heatran and Tapu Bulu. I was just really surprised these two are up this late. Let's see, this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, round 6 and 7 that these were up, and I was thinking to myself, there's no way these things are up. And so Heatran and Bulu are a really good combination, obviously, with themselves. I needed Steel anyways, so I could complete my Fairy Dragon Steel Core. Needed a Fairy, even though Bulu doesn't really have any Fairy moves besides like D-Gleam or something that I can hit things with. It's still a really good core. Bulu and Heatran complement each other very well. They're bulky, they're strong. Heatran is essentially a good Ubers Pokemon in general. Bulu is sometimes seen in Ubers just for its powerful wood hammers and stuff. But and especially since I have a couple of Earthquake weak Mons, Bulu was necessary on this team. Especially since I drafted Drapion next. I needed a grounded poison so I can deter toxic spikes from the enemy team. It only has one weakness, which is ground, and I have Bulu for that. It's a good pursuit trapper for Arceus Ghost because, as you can see, I have a justified Pokemon, I have a deterrent of fast psychics and ghosts, and I also have a pursuit trapper, so I'm really supporting Arceus well. All I needed was a Heal-A-Beller, really, and I drafted DNC a couple rounds after that, so I think I'm covering Arceus Ghost really well. Also, spikes and toxic spikes. I mean, Drapion gets toxic spikes, so I don't have to just use toxic spikes on Greninja, but hazards are really helpful for Arceus to sweep. And so Drapion was essential for me, even though he's my second dark type. Greninja doesn't get pursuit, and Drapion does. Drapion is my grounded poison, like I said, and so it fulfills two different roles that Greninja didn't fill, and so that's why I drafted Drapion. Seismitoad. I needed another stealth rocker. Even though Arceus Ghost does get stealth rocks, I don't really want to use stealth rocks on that. Same with Terrakion. Heatran was really my only reliable one, and I just needed another one. I do have 4 stealth rockers now, but I needed something to switch into water moves. My team was really Scald spammable, and so Seismitoad with the water absorb really helps out. Gets my other rocker, and its only weakness is to grass. Even though Bulu will boost somebody's grass moves, it doesn't really matter. The typing was really perfect, and I always wanted to draft a ground type so I can deter those electrics. So I now have a ground. I have Thundurus with Volt Absorb, and I have some good mons to switch into electrics as well. So after Seismitoad, I really didn't need anybody else, but I decided to just draft the NC just because of the heal bell, essentially. And I really needed a good physical wall, because a lot of these things on my teams are threats, like Arceus, Terrakion, Greninja, Latios, Thundurus. All of these can essentially be a threat and sweep and win the game, but I didn't really have a dedicated wall. This was the closest I could find, even though I do have a fairy already and a rock already, but DNC is just such a good wall, and it has more reliable fairy stab than Bulu, and fairy is really good typing in Ubers, so I decided to draft that. Also, my team was getting a little too fast, and I essentially might be weak to Trick Room, so this will have counter Trick Room. This can function in Trick Room, so that's why I drafted DNC. And then last, Ambipom. Now at this point I have a little bit of fighting weakness and a little bit of a earthquake weakness, but Bulu shores up the earthquake weakness. The little bit of a fighting weakness, I have my number 1 Mon, which essentially I'm almost bringing to every game, who is a great fighting switch-in. And even if the fighting Mon has knockoff, it's only 65 base power against Arceus Ghost, and Arceus Ghost has powerful stab. So Ambipom gave me priority. I don't believe I had priority before this. I mean, Water Shuriken on Greninja, E-Speed on Arceus Ghost. I think that's about it. I needed reliable priority. Good speed tier at 115, and it's pretty much the only reason I drafted Ambipom. Good speed, good priority, good pivot. I only had a couple pivot mons before this, and I did need the pivot. And so that is my team. I think I did really well in this draft. If you look at my team, a lot of my mons are threats. I say maybe the weakness to my team is that it doesn't have the greatest walls, because DNC and Seismitoad are not the greatest walls. Heatran is a pretty good wall, but it's weak to Earthquake, even though I have Bulu. Latios is pretty bulky, but there's nothing like a Chansey or Kofag or anything on my team to deter that. But a lot of my mons are threats. I am an offensively minded person, even though I like spike stacking and bulky offense. I like pivoting, and so I really do like my team. I think my team is one of the best in this draft, even though it has weaknesses. So yeah, that's about it, and I'll see y'all later.